Hello, I've found myself in a studio with a camera, so I thought I'd take the opportunity. I'm here in Sydney, Australia, to just throw in my thoughts and my, 20 years of research now into this whole phenomenon that's unfolding as I speak, called the Occupy movement. Came out of Wall Street, of course. And it's a great thing. It's fantastic that people are waking up to the point where they're saying, I'm a slave, and I ain't having it anymore. That's the great Rubicon that needs crossing so we can do something about this. The reason I'm just going to put this information out, people make of it what they will, is there's another agenda going on here too. And if the genuine response to this grotesque enslavement of humanity in terms of finance and in terms of so many other things is going to be challenged effectively, then people need to get streetwise to what this other agenda is. And also the fundamentals of what we're dealing with. So I'm going to take it in stages. First of all, the fundamentals of what we're dealing with. If anything is going to happen that's going to change this tyranny of global banking and global finance, then first of all, the way that money is created, or what passes for money is created, has to fundamentally change. If this doesn't change, nothing's going to change, because the power doesn't move. There's no change in the power dynamic of money creation, because people don't realize this in vast, vast numbers, that when you ask the question, how is money created? Where does money come from? People have this kind of feeling, what, it's the government's in it? No. Overwhelmingly, massively overwhelmingly, it is not the government's. It is private banks, which, if you do the research, owned by the same people under different names, the same network under different names. Private banks are creating what we call money out of fresh, bloody air, and then charging us interest on it. And it works like this. If you go into a bank and you borrow $50,000, what does the bank do? Does it move precious metal anywhere? I mean, what does it do? What it does is it types into your account $50,000. And from that moment, you start paying interest on $50,000 that has never, does not, and will never exist. Fresh air, theoretical money called credit. This has been allowed to happen because, again, when you do the research, the same networks that control governments and therefore pass legislation to do with banking are the same networks that control the banks and the banking system. Therefore, laws have been passed called fractional reserve lending that allow banks to lend at least, and my goodness, it's at least, 10 times what they have on deposit. So when you put $1 in a bank, that bank can now lend 9/10 that it does not have. Fresh air, figures on a screen. Not only that, you borrow $50,000 from a bank. What does it do? It types into your account $50,000. Okay, now you're paying interest on it. But you take $10,000 and you say, I'm going to buy that car, and you give $10,000 to the guy who owns the car to buy the car off him. Now the guy who's received your $10,000 that was created out of nothing in the original $50,000 now goes and deposits the 10 grand in his own bank. Now that bank can lend 10 times the 10 grand that was created out of nothing in the first place. This is what's going on. And then if you follow one loan, $50,000 or whatever, you follow that through the banking system, and that one loan allows the banking system as a whole to create phenomenal amounts of non-existent money we call credit from that original non-existent credit loan. This is how the banking system, ladies and gentlemen, have taken the world over. Why wouldn't it when they can do that? And there's another little scam here. All written in on purpose, cold, calculated. When you go into a bank and you borrow $50,000, the bank creates, even in this theoretical, ludicrous way, $50,000. But you're not paying back $50,000, you're paying back $50,000 plus interest. The interest is never created, even as credit, which means a simple fact. At any point in time, coldly calculated, designed to be, there is never anything like enough units of exchange, money, in circulation to pay back all the principal on the debt and all the interest on the outstanding debt. Therefore, people losing their homes, losing their businesses, losing goodness knows what else that they've worked for, is built into the system. Now, when you have a boom and there's an expansion of this non-existent, ludicrous money called credit, then Peter Pays Paul hides to a large extent the fact that we're in this situation where the outstanding debt cannot be paid back or even nearly paid back plus interest because there isn't the units exchange to do it. But when you go into a recession or a depression and there is a contraction of those ludicrous units of exchange in circulation, then it becomes blatantly obvious that there's not enough units of exchange to pay back all the interest on the debt and all the principal, and that's why you get this explosion, which we've got now, of people losing their homes, losing their businesses, losing their land, their farms, etc. And all these tent cities that are appearing around the world. And so we have a system where the private banks, in the end controlled by the same network, not least around the house of Rothschild and others, the Rockefellers too, in America, have been given this level of power to create money and dictate completely, beyond governments, global finance. And that's why they're able to create booms and busts at will. That's why when they want to create a bust and a depression, which they have now, what do? They refuse to issue the same amounts of ludicrous credit units of exchange. And what do we call it? Oh, the banks have got a credit crunch. A credit crunch, what's that? It's suppressing the amount of money in circulation, so by definition creating this situation we're in. The whole money system has been designed from its creation to be a system of human enslavement and human control and human suppression. So first of all, any occupying protests around the world on the agenda has to be the end of private banks being able to create money out of fresh air on a computer screen and charge interest on it. Now here's a question. Why are governments, they're the government after all, don't they make the laws? I heard somewhere they did. Why are they not creating their own currency interest-free and circulating it interest-free? Therefore, it does the job it's supposed to do, which is to be a unit of exchange to overcome the limitations of barter. Why? I've said it already. Because the same networks that control the banks control the governments. And so the governments do not pass legislation saying, well, what are we borrowing fresh air money from the banks for, plus interest, and making the people have to pay in taxation all that stuff back? All we got to do is create our own money interest-free, because you see, at the moment, the very unit of exchange which allows economic activity to happen is created at the very start as a debt by people borrowing money from banks called credit. It's a debt from the start, the very unit of exchange in the world. It's crazy, it's insane. Number two, that has got to go. No more governments, and we need to redefine what we see as government too. No government borrows money at interest from private banks. Ludicrous. Then there's another thing. Like I say, whether we have a boom or a bust is decided by this very banking system. because they have what they call an economic cycle. It's total corruption and total manipulation. First of all, they put lots of units of exchange out, credit. Oh, you know, you earn 2 and 6 a week? Okay, have this £500,000 house. Yes, here's the money, take it. And they put lots of units of exchange in circulation. And there's a boom, manufactured, and when people are in a boom and they get confident about their jobs, they go into more debt, bigger house, a bigger car, all the rest of it. And then what they do at an optimum point, this is what they did in 2008, is they take or create an excuse to take money out of circulation. Now the economic activity generated by that amount of money in circulation is no longer possible. And we move over here, fishing line coming in now, to a depression or a slump. People do not lose their homes overwhelmingly because they don't want to work anymore. They lose their homes because there's not enough economic activity to generate the income to pay the mortgage. Companies don't go bust because they think it would be a bit of fun. They go through a bust because there's not enough demand for their products at a time of a downturn when the money in circulation is being reduced. And what happens? The banks that have created this problem in the first place, they take the homes, they take the businesses, they take the land, they take the real wealth for having not been paid back money that has not, does not, and will never exist. This is the power that the governments, controlled by the same network, have given to the banks to control planet Earth. Anything that comes out of these Occupy protests that does not include demands, not taking no for an answer, this has got to go, it's going to change nothing. And there's another couple of things, maybe a few more, that I'd like to get across to those that are brilliantly protesting around the world. Because there's nothing more manipulatable than genuineness that isn't streetwise. And what we need to do, if we're going to really bring an end to this outrageous, inhuman nonsense, is we have to get streetwise pretty damn quick. Because there are people, vultures, flying around, flitting around these protests, not least in Wall Street, trying to direct it in a certain direction that will make the world more enslaved and more unjust than it is now. There's certain coordinates, 3 will do in this presentation, if you like. 1, where does this network behind the banking system and behind governments and behind the transnational corporations, where does it want to take us? Okay? Well, simple. It wants total control over the entire human race, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. And to do that, and there's a few, compared with the 7 billion global population, there are a handful of people at the core of this in full knowledge of what they're doing. They have to constantly centralize decision-making. Because the more you centralize decision-making, the more power the few have over even greater numbers of people. The other thing that goes on is the more you centralize power, the more power you have centrally to centralize even quicker. So the process of centralization of power, it's been given a word now for a long time called globalization. This can move quicker and quicker and quicker through this process of centralized power, more power to centralize even quicker. What they want to create, I've been writing about this now for nearly 20 years, is they want a world government that would dictate all laws, apart from a few local things. All the major laws will be dictated by this world government, just as the European Union dictatorship now dictates something like 75% of the laws that are passed in Britain. They want a world government then that would dictate to everybody on the planet. They want a world central bank that would dictate all global finance to every what is now countries, though they want to break them up into regions. They